to Books Without Borders. Today we're going to be reviewing the book Mediocracy, The Politics of the Extreme Centre by Alain Duneau. Get rid of those complicated books. Accounting will solve the problem. Don't be arrogant or witty or even comfortable. You could come across as arrogant. Dim any passion you may have. They can be scary. Most importantly, there is no such thing as a good idea. The shredder is filled with them. There must be some way to fit you within this piercing look. Dilate it and relax your lips. Think softly and show it. Do everything you can to reduce it to little. It must be possible. Times have changed. Nevertheless, the assault has succeeded, and the mediocre have gained control of the country. Duneau offers an incisive, often caustic examination of the reign of mediocrity that sterilizes the human mind by cultivating a reckless love of mediocrity in culture and politics. Mediocrity is an unstable social structure in the middle that is permanently on the verge of collapse. The author maps an important part of the territory that ultra-liberalism has conquered. The central idea is that we are living in the results of an unprecedented level of corruption in democracy. We are now living in mediocrity. In this regime, power is in the hands of average people who climb the ladder of mediocrity by playing the game. This game, which can be played at all different levels of hierarchy, consists in respecting the rules in appearance, but to ignore them behind the scenes to impose his will. Duneau shows with many examples how mediocrity corrupts everything from language to ideas, to intellectuals, to the academic world, as well as the economy, art and culture, and democracy. Mediocrity subordinates intellectual activity and action to regimes of governance, stuns us with its empty language and with public consultations whose final conclusions, predetermined in advance, are nothing more than ratifications of power's choices. There have only been a few recent publications that attack mediocrity without calling it that. This is a unique addition to that group of publications. There is, however, something disappointing in his conclusion for those looking for a detailed explanation of how to topple this new system. Inspired by Aristotle, he opposes the ultra-liberal corruption of democracy that is influencing the generation of a new system, as demonstrated by movements like Occupy and Red Squares. The author may have found interesting tracks to overthrow this new regime if he had pursued the analysis of the forces which he made mediocrity possible. Mediocracy, the politics of the extreme centre, examines how the middle ground may lead to ruin in our education system, government, economy, and cultural system. As the title might suggest, this isn't a cut-and-dry political analysis or a journalistic tirade against the right. This book instead discusses how professionalisation, workflow, productivity, deadline culture, mass media, and education reform all damage the quality and competence of ideas in society today. Dr. Duneau views centrist movements, and especially ideas about finding common ground, as destructive in certain respects. They disengage people by professionalising words and phrases, and they force staff to write X amount of papers every year, rather than promoting smart, innovative staff. It is common for politicians to seek the middle ground in big tent politics while suppressing the reformist sides of their parties. In tit-for-tat exchanges over ideas that won't change the bigger picture, culture is sanitised to some extent around ideas that are largely non-controversial. It has become increasingly difficult for art and culture to have meaning for the broader society, as they have now become commodities. In 1940 in France, it was easy to understand what to resist meant: planting bombs, creating communication networks, hiding Jews, etc. Today, for the Quebec middle class, resisting has a completely different connotation. It's resisting the buffet, the game of the system, explains the philosopher. The game here is to do this to get that, to show your credentials and your softness in order to obtain a status, a salary, and social benefits that allow you to live well and look good. To resist, today, therefore amounts to avoiding the easy way, to remembering, too, that we are not alone, or rather, as Michelle Lalonde wrote in 1968 in her poem Speak White, that we know we are not alone. The whole social device, the advertising slogans, think different or just do it, the maxim be yourself or simply Facebook, however, consists in making us individualistic. It's completely crazy, says Denote, since madness is precisely to place yourself in the centre of a small hole. For Denote, we conform to an order which is its own cancer. Thanks to small-time trickery and frolicking, mediocrity leads us to completely lose sight of otherwise important issues, social justice, ecology, which sometimes deserve temptations to be resisted. Do not say, for example, the theatre or the hospital that they have clients, but rather spectators or patients. Do not talk about water governance, but rather about the privatization of water or simply of a public service. We have to talk about a status that has political meaning and that refers to a defence of achievements or a demand for progress. The problem with thought, explains the author, is that language tilts it where you want it. It can tip over into criticism, which consists of becoming aware of the ideological drivers of the discourse and resisting them, or it can tip over into expertise, which consists of thinking as the power wishes us to do, so that it perpetuates. Expertise and ideology are often the semantic mortar that holds physical institutions in our heads. It's a kind of fairy tale which gives a sense of roundness to a reality that's full of problems. It's a children's story. There are not many differences between an expert and passe-partout, a master of them all. With phrases such as high-quality standards in corporate governance respecting the values of excellence, we understand better what the author means. In short, expertise disguises itself as science, which itself is neither more nor less subject to industry and power. Mediocrity makes mediocre, concludes Alain Deneau, even for those who, in other contexts, would claim better. Personally, I found this book really interesting, but the title doesn't live up to the expectations. In Denote's book, he uses well-researched arguments against specific subjects he is knowledgeable about. For example, education and the academic system, as well as many more vapid arguments unrelated to his field. For example, Chinese manufacturing and the financial system. He lacks authority in certain categories due to the lack of sourced references, making his arguments seem like an uneducated rant against ideas he's never heard of. That's not the case all the time. The section he is talking about in regards to education is illuminating and has the authority that comes with experience and wisdom. Rather than being a political book, this is a philosophical exploration of Western society's over-professionalization and its increasingly average, bland and uninspiring system of logic, politics and culture. The author covers intellectuals, academic and culture, while ranting against Chinese manufacturing and big business in this innovative and controversial text. In this book, the author provides ideas that transcend right-left dynamics, but approach the level of populist zeal, which I found fascinating. The book is a little hard to read, but it discusses the preponderance of mediocrity in our society. Because of the style of writing, I wasn't so amused by the book. For me, the sentences were very long, difficult to understand, and contained a lot of complicated vocabulary. I had to resort to the dictionary quite a lot. Don't get me wrong, we gained some interesting ideas from some of the following sentences, but it's difficult to follow them all. I wish the writing style had been more straightforward and less convoluted. I think the author would have gained more readers that way as well. The author starts by attacking the universities, at least partly with reason, but leaves the reader with the impression that it is not a mere analysis but something personal. In the coming paragraphs, the scope of the attack grows into an altogether disjointed proclamation. It is an excellent essay by an excellent writer, well documented, good scholarship. It is particularly effective in its discussion of academic mediocrity. With the passage of time, we leave the theme of mediocrity in favour of an economic critique where mediocrity still has its place, but is no longer at the centre of the author's demonstrations. The section on opposing the university system and playing the game is very interesting, but I won't tell you too much just in case you want to read it. In summary, this book is written very well, the layout is concise, and the book doesn't peel off a necessity when reading an essay, since we take notes, underline, dent, in short. Mediocracy also affects the education system, business, politics, society, groups, and hierarchy. However, the translation is sometimes a bit shaky. Most of the time you can work out what the author is trying to get across, but you have to read between the lines kind of thing. Alain Deneau, a prolific essayist who knows how to aim where it hurts. Here, we are not in a work of pure research, with demonstrations, results and thesis and support, but rather in a story that paints the dark portrait of our time. Several themes pass through it, whether it is the poor state of university research, the perversion of language, the reign of experts, or even resistance. Definitely worth the read. If you've liked this video, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel, where you can find other reviews like this one across a number of different titles. Thank you for watching.